Back into the early line here on the SportsGrid Network. I'm Dubs Anderson. That is Joe Raineri, and time to talk a little college football, the playoffs, the new look playoff format. And Joe, before we take a deep dive into some of these quarterfinal matchups, what are your thoughts on what we have seen? Are you all for it? Is it thumbs up, thumbs down? Do we need to still make a couple of changes going forward?
Yes, there has to be changes going forward here because I have a suspicion that we are probably not going to see some competitive games again this round here, Dubs. And I think the seeding has got to change, much like when you have March Madness, Dubs, where the four best teams in the country are usually the four number one seeds, right? And then you start slotting them in from there. The four best teams in the country were not given a bye. They weren't. So this whole seeding system, because then what happens is then you tend to get, Notre Dame's beating up a overmatched Indiana team. And then you've, here we go again. We've got a Penn State team beating an SMU team that, come on, that didn't even look like real football, what SMU was doing out there. So I think the seeding system needs to change here a little bit. I still am a big proponent of I only think there's a handful of teams every year, Dubs, that can win a national championship. There's never going to be a Cinderella. This is a money grab. I'll still say it. Kudos, Indiana, SMU. And I get it. There's been blowouts in the BCS era and all of that. I get it. But now you've just tripled the blowouts. Now we've got to watch football and watch teams that, yes, they may deserve to get there because they played by the rules and won the games on a schedule. But that doesn't mean they're the best teams in the country. I don't think we have the 12 best teams in the country. We have the 12 most deserving, I guess, based upon the rules. But the 12 most deserving is going to give us blowout after blowout after blowout until we eventually get down to what is going to be, I think, the Final Four.
Yeah, there's really different ways to measure and put weight on some of these victories and some of those losses. So certainly a couple of chinks that they've got to iron out moving into the future here. But let's take a look at the quarterfinals. We'll have one matchup going on New Year's Eve. We've got 3 games on the slate for New Year's Day, and out here on the West Coast, Best Coast, out to the Rose Bowl, it's the Oregon Ducks, quack going against the Ohio State Buckeyes. And this one opened up as the Buckeyes projected to be the favorites. They're laying a point. They're now laying 2.5, minus 130 on the money line, 11-2 for their season record. They'll have star quarterback Will Howard going against Dylan Gabriel, who I've been big on all season. But early thoughts for this look ahead, Jar?
And this is kind of my point, right? How are you the number one seed in the country, the number one team in the country, and you get a bye the first week, but your game is against Ohio State? Come on. It's just, that's unbelievable here. Ohio State should have got a bye with Oregon and others there. We should have had the 4 best teams being the 1 through 4 seed, and let everybody else work their way up to them. But instead, here we go. We're going to get maybe what should have been a national championship game. We're going to get it here now in this round with Oregon taking on Ohio State. And listen, we saw this already. It's a neutral site, though. We saw it at Oregon. Oregon squeaked by there, but Ohio State had their chances in that game and ended up shooting themselves in the foot with Will Howard late. I think it's going to be a fantastic game. If the Ohio State shows up that we just watched against Tennessee, Ohio State wins this game. If they don't, Oregon wins this game. Either way, there's a good chance your national champion is the winner of this game.
Yeah, big call there. And for the Oregon Ducks, they've been the shortest price on the board for the Natty all season long, but now they're dogs going into this one. So still a lot of parity projected out of the top 4 teams, at least going into the quarterfinals. And I'll tell you what, the Fighting Irish, Notre Dame, getting set to square off going against Georgia. We shared the news earlier on today's show for the Bulldogs. They will be missing star quarterback Carson Beck, will not go in this one. They're still sitting there, minus 128 over at the FanDuel Sportsbook. But with that surgery, with that news coming across for Carson Beck in that elbow, I'll see Gunnar Stockton come in for this one to get the starting duties. But he's shown plenty of promise when he has had his opportunities as well, Jar.
Yeah, and like I said, they've had plenty enough time to figure it out. He's not a guy with limited experience. He's got plenty of experience here. And they're going to have their hands full against a Notre Dame team that certainly has the horses here to give Georgia a run for their money. Now, ultimately, I think this is going to be very interesting to see. Offensively, a Georgia team that has struggled to run the ball, but quite honestly, you're not going to run on this Notre Dame defense. If you're going to beat Notre Dame, you got to beat them by throwing on them. It'll be interesting to see if Stockton can do that. If they can, they got a pretty good shot at winning this game, but Notre Dame is going to be a tough out for anybody, including a backup quarterback for the Georgia Bulldogs.
Notre Dame, Georgia, projected to be a close one. So too for Ohio State in Oregon out here on the West Coast. One of the bigger lines set there. Boise State taking on Penn State. Penn State, the Nittany Lions. I feel like we used to know someone who supported this team. It really is not coming to mind. But 10.5, is this going to be the easy beats of the quarterfinals, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Penn State, much like what they did to SMU here, what's going to happen when Boise State can't run the ball with what's going to happen? They're going to beat Penn State secondary? Like, I think this has got disaster written all over it. I think this is going to be, it's 10.5 for a reason at this point, Dubs. And I'd be shocked if that number doesn't crawl up and get a little bit higher before kickoff.
10.5, Penn State looking to take down star running back Ashton Jeanty and the Boise State Broncos. The biggest margin, I guess the biggest discrepancy going in the quarterfinals, the Longhorns going against Arizona State, who have had a really good year, 11-2. They've got star running back Jim Scatterbo. He's looked sensational, but there's levels to this thing. Can the Longhorns cover the 2 touchdowns, Jar?
Listen, there's no way I thought Clemson was going to drop as many points on that Texas defense as they did in Texas, no less. Maybe Arizona has a puncher's chance to keep it close, but probably not.
Chick-fil-A Pizza Bowl playoff action coming up next week. Stick with us. More on the other side of the early line. Welcome back into the early line, talking all things college football. I'm Dubs Anderson. That is Joe Raineri. We're looking ahead towards the quarterfinals getting underway New Year's Eve. So a week from today, some of these blue chip programs vying for the biggest honor in college sports. And if we look at the odds board, Joe, it tells us it's all about the Texas Longhorns. Quinn Ewers getting set to lead Texas into the promised land. They're sitting at plus 310. We've got Ohio State at plus 330 and Oregon, the Ducks sitting at plus 480. Taking a look at the bracket, going after the analysis that we shared prior to that commercial, Texas going against Arizona State. If they were to move on to the semifinals, they would square off against the winner of Ohio State and Oregon. I like Oregon, so it'd be Texas-Oregon in the first semifinal. Penn State going against Boise State. Boise State seem to be completely out of their weight division. They are going to be going up in grade against Penn State. I think Penn State survive, advance, move on to the semifinal. And then Notre Dame going against Georgia. That's going to be one of the closer games here out of the 4 quarterfinals. So in terms of the way that bracket looks to funnel going through the next couple of games, who's going to be the team to beat for you, Joe? Is the odds board absolutely spot on that it should be Texas at plus 310 as the ones to beat?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's Ohio State and Oregon. Whoever wins this game between them this week at the Rose Bowl, that's your national champion. A couple of different ways to approach it then, Dubs, if that's the case. Bet who you think is going to win that game. Bet it now, because once they do win it, you're not going to get them at that price. I can promise you that. And I would just keep rolling it over here. Lock it in now. If you think Oregon is at nearly 5-1, lock that in. Lock them to win against Ohio State. Lock them to win on, and they would have the winner of what game there? The Georgia Notre Dame game? Is that how it would work out?
Yeah, Ohio State, Oregon winner looks to advance and take on Texas or Arizona State. Likely would be Texas there if they were to get the result of Arizona State. So that looks to be the tougher side of the board.
Absolutely, it does. But if you make it through that gauntlet, you're beating whatever comes out from the other side. Whether and in likelihood, what, Penn State taking on, the winner of. There you go. So that's that to me. Now, is there a dark horse here? Can you look like it? It feels to me like Texas and Ohio State is what everyone seems to think is going to be a thing, but that's all coming from the other side. So listen, anything can happen in any given game, right? So whoever you think is going to win the other side of the bracket, that appears to be where the best odds are currently, right? So if you think Notre Dame is coming out of that side to play for a national championship, or if you think Penn State is doing it, maybe that's the side to look at here, because who is going to be a favorite in these games here right now? I mean, if Notre Dame plays Penn State, is it a pick'em game? Feels it.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly would be very close there. Tougher assignment for the odds makers. And Joe, for anyone who's maybe not big on the college football, or they get up to speed at this time of year trying to see who's going to take out the national championship, it looks a little different. We had 12 teams coming in to this new look playoff format. Is it a sign of the times, with NIL deals and player portals, that we can expect to see different programs making a bit of a run at this thing year in, year out? Is it just going to be a carousel of players, swapping and changing? Does it make it harder for a new, coach of a program like a Bill Belichick coming in to North Carolina and just trying to build that consistency year over year?
Listen, I don't know what this is, a hot mess, college football moving forward. They basically, congratulations, the genie's out of the bottle. You've got kids that can get paid now for their name, image, and likeness. But did you just see what happened in Duke? You have a 3-star high school prospect just 2 years ago out of California, played 1 year at Tulane this year, just signed for $5 million at Duke. $5 million. Dubs, $5 million. How in the world how do you compete with that now? So that's basically, and he's not even that good. He played at Tulane, and now he's going to Duke, and you're paying him $5 million. I don't know how you reel this thing back in. I really don't. It's a mess right now.
Yeah, it really feels
he's
like...
He's making more money than coaches.
Jeez. It feels like it's getting out of hand, Joe, and I really, really wish I was better at sports. That's my big takeaway. Jumping in, play the Natty Texas. That's the team to beat. Plus 310. Quarterfinals getting underway next Tuesday. Time for a break. We'll be back here on the other side. More on the early line.